You're listening.
I just don't care.
No one is ever kidding Michael Cole.
Of course he can roll a grudge forever. This is wrestling.
Welcome back to This Is a Work. My name is David Hensley. I'm the owner and creative director of Long Walk Productions, and I am here tonight to introduce your host, Robert, the distinguished gentleman Brafford.
Thank you very much, David. Happy New Year to everybody listening. I am here, and back with me is my tag team partner, Chris, the Fashion Plate Barnes. Chris, how you doing?
I am here to move as little as possible so I don't lose any body heat.
Yes, indeed. It is a little bit chilly out here where we're recording after a pretty warm Christmas and New Year's period. But, you know, give me a chance to test out this very, very heavily lined raincoat that I'll probably only get to use for like 2.5 months out of the year. So I'm getting my worth while I got it. All right, so I hope everybody enjoyed the holidays. We are going to get into AEW Worlds End, the final pay-per-view of the year, the culmination of AEW's second Continental Classic. Overall, a lot to dig into in terms of some elements of the show, but as far as AEW goes, this was only there were 11 matches, including 3 on the pre-show. This was a pretty tight card by AEW standards.
Meanwhile, WWE has adopted the work ethic of out by 10.
Well, but now they're also being. But we can have multiple shows per weekend, so they're talking about SummerSlam.
Oh my God, yeah. No, SummerSlam is definitely happening next year.
It's already happened with WrestleMania.
They are discussing it over, I think, Royal Rumble,
and maybe Survivor Series or War Games.
I think one of them might have been Money in the Bank too.
I can see it being really anyone that has like the stipulation at the heart of it. So it's just like main event, the men's match.
No, they're not all events like that.
Yeah, no. WrestleMania, you can kind of get away with it because it's WrestleMania. It's the granddaddy of them all that.
Well, they got lucky with the pandemic, and and it's like it worked out. Then it's like, oh well, of course it's the biggest show. We can definitely stretch it.
And with the fact that they were doing it in their performance center, they really had to. Yeah, so I think stretching is sort of a similar thing. There's a point I want to talk to in here where we can look at how AEW has moved away from their 4 cards a year or 4 pay-per-views a year with like special dynamite sprinkled in between to having a 12 pay-per-view per year schedule, and how that's affected some stories that maybe could use a little more time to breathe. But yeah, so have you?
They're essentially doing the evolution of wrestling and pay-per-view in a speed run.
It really is. It's like one of those labs they set up in a bio where they can like speed up like development just by seeing how quickly some things reproduce.
Because this is what WWE had to tweak over years and years of trying.
Yeah, I'm waiting. So Tony Khan needs to have a son who like just shows up in like a background role on camera, but gradually becomes the evilest man in the industry.
Always a ref. You always start as a ref.
All right, so yeah, another interesting thing about World's End, a lot of the big names on AEW did not actually wrestle on this card. So like Swerve Strickland showed up but didn't have a match. Neither did anybody on the Hurt Syndicate. That's going to take some getting used to. Moxley was only one of the Death Riders who wrestled. It was, again, pretty trimmed down in an interesting way.
Yeah.
Pre-show starts off, and kind of as we started doing recently, we're not going to do kind of a match-by-match breakdown. I'm just going to list the 3 matches, and we can kind of talk generally about them. We start off with Toni Storm versus Layla Gray, then Jeff Jarrett versus QT Marshall, and finally an 8-man tag with the Outrunners and Top Flight versus Leo Rush, Action Andretti, and the Murder Machines, as Brian Cage and Lance Archer are calling themselves.
It's always fun to see that spunky newcomer Toni Storm in action.
Yeah, she's just, I think she's got a lot of potential ahead of her. She's clearly a little nervous, got some stuff to work out in the ring, but you can tell she's so happy to be there. And that's the sparkle in the eye that you love to see at the start of a promising career.
It's weird to hear an aw shucks attitude filter through an Australian accent, too.
I think, my favorite thing about it is how much she is overplaying not just like general rookie things, but things she did early in her career. Like I remember the first time I ever saw Toni Storm wrestle was at I think it was the Evolution pay-per-view that WWE did, the all-women's show. And I was like, she seems good, but she has this like really, like her face is super expressive. Like she does all these really big like emotions during the match.
Yeah.
And obviously Timeless Toni was like an emotive character in its own way, but it was very focused. And now she's gone back to being sort of like playing like, oh, her surprise or concern or elation that she's just playing everything so big again in a like. I feel like she's watched her old footage and been like, okay, how can I turn that up to 15?
It also seems like she's dialing up what she used to have to do in WWE, because they're always big on that. Do the massive kick out of 2, and you look super, super shocked and upset.
There are people who think this is who don't like the amnesiac thing, which is just weird because, for one, it hasn't even been going on a month. It's been going on for like 3 weeks, I think, since she returned. And clearly they're going somewhere with it. Like if this, 3 months on, if this is still in the same place, fine. But guys, it's fun. It also
like no one else is pretending she's a rookie. Everyone's kind of dancing around, but they're like, they're treating it like, she's having some kind of episode and she's regressed.
Yeah,
like,
commentary is completely no selling it. And Deonna Purrazzo sort of got into it, but by coming backstage with the most like teeth gritted, "Hi, oh, good to meet you. Oh no, we met last week, didn't we? Wow, how could I forget something like that?" Just the most backhanded way of, I think, my only curiosity is if they're going to use this to build to her and Mariah feuding for the title, or if they're going to wait till after Mariah's dropped it, because clearly they're going back to that. Mm-hmm. But there's so much good energy there. I want AEW to keep developing women's feuds that don't involve championships.
I was about to say, I think this, especially since the build was for it too, I think this is going to be way better without a title involved.
Yeah. I know AEW has a pay-per-view in Australia next year, and people are kind of looking at the Aussie talent, especially Kyle Fletcher and Tony Storm, is like, okay, what are they positioning them for when this happens? And I don't know if it's a cultural thing that Australians love watching Brits get the crap kicked out of them, but it's interesting that both of them are like their biggest feud is with an English rival.
It's true around the Commonwealth and in the U.S. It's fun watching the English get the crap kicked out of them.
Yeah, so good match. Tony wins with a quick inside cradle and then does the like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I won, and like rolls out of the ring in shock. Layla Gray looks good too, honestly. She's stepped up her game a lot since her days kind of just standing behind Jade Cargill. Jeff Jarrett, QT Marshall have a pretty good match. QT's one of those guys, he's a good opponent. He can have a great match with people. He's just really not that interesting on his own.
No.
They did tease afterwards. Jarrett had a backstage interview where he talked about having an announcement on this week's Dynamite.
Yes.
Which apparently turned out to be that he has re-signed with AEW.
It's his last talent contract. His last signing as an active wrestler, basically.
Yeah. So he's going to end his in-ring career in AEW, and he has his eye on the championship.
Dogs is ecstatic.
The thing about Jarrett is he looks great for 57.
He does. He's 58, actually. I think
he's 58?
I think so.
Yeah. But just like
amazing.
That age, he's still, and his style has always been such that he can still do a lot of the same kind of stuff. It's not like somebody like Goldberg where you can just tell like the physicality this guy had in his like late 20s is just not there anymore.
Oh, by the way, did you hear who else thinks they have one last match in them?
I just heard that. Yeah.
The man who had a pay-per-view to celebrate his final match for real this time.
Didn't he nearly have a heart attack in the middle of that?
He had to have his main event with his final match be a tag match because he couldn't carry it with between him and someone else.
Yeah. So I'm glad they're setting up Jarrett to have... I don't think he's going to have quite as iconic of a goodbye as, say, Sting did, but...
Maybe not, but also I think Jarrett would also want it to be more fitting that he not go out resting on laurels or anything like that.
Yeah. I'm just curious to see who is... Like, I know they were teasing for a while the idea of like a Hangman Jarrett rivalry for All In. That'd be interesting to see if they revisit that.
I think Jarrett would absolutely be the first person to want it to be as messy as possible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's gonna... It'd be cool if it was Lethal who retired him, but I don't know. There's probably going to be a long line of guys ready for that last match. So that one, Jarrett does go over. Let's see. And then, the 8-man tag match, which AEW's really had a thing with their pre-shows of having like a 10-man or an 8-man tag match as like the final thing before the show, and that's always great. That just hypes up the crowd. I feel
like it's a round robin thing where it's like, hey, we want to get more people on the card to get more eyes on you, and I think they do a good job of mixing up who's going out there every time.
Yeah, and good way to shine a spotlight on the tag division, just because Private Party does not actually defend on this card, but you do kind of see them watching backstage.
Yep.
And it's
they do the classic watching television thing.
And man, just the Outrunners, because word came out that the Bucks were looking at them for possibly being the ones to take the title off them.
That, yeah.
I don't know if that would have worked at the time. It would have been a huge thing in the moment. I just think
it would have been a short-term pop.
Yeah, like they work so well doing their thing right now. I don't know. I'm more like let's let that season a little bit before we put belts on.
Private Party was the right choice.
Yeah. And that's it. I love the Outrunners. I love everything they do with the aesthetic. Yeah. I love that they've added VCR scratches to their entrance segments.
And what's amazing about this gimmick is that it's golden in a way that you don't have to give them tag belts. Just earlier into 2024, they were enhancement talent for a lot of the other tag teams, and now they've gotten over so much. They are one of the main attractions.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like watching, I was thinking, Beast Mortos. Like, you've always got those guys that the crowd is hot for, but it's also like, okay, this guy's not quite in a position to win, the TNT championship or whatever. And that's okay. Like, it's okay to just have a guy that the crowd is really hyped to see them. They have a match, and then they go on.
I think that goes a long way towards the, I don't know if I would call it moneyballing or what, or like over sportsification of wrestling, where it's like a championship doesn't have to be the be-all, end-all goal for every wrestler.
Yeah.
They're the guys who definitely should be in the championship mix, but they're the guys who is like, they've got a great gimmick, they're fun. A championship just muddies things around them in terms of how hot they can stay.
Yeah. So, again, a year down the line, who knows, but right now they're doing just fine with what they've got. And this, you can tell the crowd loved it, and it was a good mix, too, because you have, on each team, you've got two kind of big power guys and two high flyers. Brian Cage looking really good with a beard, just kind of offhandedly mentioning that he's shifted over to full beard. It's a sharp look for him. But, I like him and Archer as a tag team, too, just seeing them tear it up. Let's see, Leo Rush and Andretti and the Murder Machines go over. A little bit of heel infighting when Archer's setting up to finish off Dante Martin. Leo Rush tags himself in and then just immediately does a frog splash where he almost bounces all the way out of the ring after hitting him and then pins it. And Archer just has this great look of not like, I'm going to kill you. How dare you? Just looking really annoyed.
Yeah.
Like I was going to do that.
I had jerk. This, it's like, this is unnecessary. This is.
Yeah. So overall, good pre-show. I gave it 3 1/4. Did what it needed to do. Hyped the crowd up. Yeah. Got some people on camera. Again, if nothing else, I love the Amnesia story because it keeps Toni Storm involved without needing to come up with any further explanation for why she's not in the title picture.
Right. Exactly.
Let's see.
And the show started the way it should have, which was right out the gate.
Yes, indeed. We are starting out with the semifinal match.
I hope everyone was sitting down watching in front of the TV when the show officially kicked off, because if you were doing something, you missed.
Yeah, if you came back in 5 minutes, you would just be like, when did this guy's face come off? Yes, we have the semifinal match of the Continental Classic, Will Ospreay versus Kyle Fletcher. So, interesting thing, the change of the Continental Classic. Last year, they had all of their matches leading up to the pay-per-view happening on TV. And the two finalists in each league fought. The finalists in each of the leagues had a triple threat match because they were tied in one league. And the winner of that took on. They had the final match on pay-per-view. Wow, I muddled that explanation.
Let's go to the flow chart.
Yeah. I actually think it's a pretty intuitive concept, but when you try to explain it, it ends up getting muddled around. Anyway, this year they cleaned that up a little bit to avoid having, I think, repeat matches. So you have the winner of one league fights the runner-up from the other league.
Yes. And
vice versa. So what you end up with is a finale between two people who actually have not had a match in this tournament so far. Now, Ospreay and Fletcher, of course, had a match at Full Gear where they also nearly killed each other. And to their credit, it was going to be a great match no matter what, because these guys get each other. Like, it's just the case of two wrestlers where you're like, these two guys are in perfect sync. Like, they know what the other one's doing. They know exactly where they need to be. But also there was just, they worked in the different stakes, which I've liked that a lot for the Continental Classic. That even if, I don't think AEW's necessarily sold why it's a big deal, but having all of these people show how much it matters to them gives it that credibility. And yeah, I just thought, oh man, these guys, like you said, this one started off with a bang.
Yeah, everyone wants that big gold belt.
Yeah.
I think it was like, it went back and forth. It got intense, and then Will Ospreay bladed in the sweetest spot he ever could have, because that man, a river of blood fell across his face for the rest of that match.
He was Old Faithfuling. It was just did not stop gushing out.
It didn't. I think at some point they found a way to forcibly stop it, because if he kept going,
yeah, it's like you need to be conscious at the end of this match and for later in the evening.
I feel like he lost at least a pint and a half of blood in that match.
Could not have been less, because he gets lawn darted into the barricade by Fletcher, and when we cut back to him, he started to bleed, and then 30 seconds later, his entire face, it's a literal crimson mask.
And they do not let up on the gas barely, but they barely let up on the gas the entire time. So his blood is pumping, and it's definitely pumping out the top of his head.
And I don't know how if this was always the plan, or if they worked this in when they realized how bad he was bleeding. But Fletcher starts, like, at one point he holds Ospreay's head and starts kicking him repeatedly in the face. Fletcher's wearing white gear, so you just see his boot getting redder and redder as it comes away from each hit.
I think, you know what, I don't think they accounted for just how much Ospreay was going to bleed. Yeah. But usually when someone comes out in white gear and they're expecting a hard match, it's because they want the blood to get on there and make it look grisly.
And of course he does the lick spot. He takes his hands and just lets the audience get a good look, and then just slowly licks Will Ospreay's blood off his fingers.
That is trust between two men right there.
It really is. And here's the thing about Ospreay. The idea that he doesn't sell has always been stupid, but this card is a rebuttal of that, because you see
it factors heavily into a later match.
Yeah, he is forcing his vision to unblur as the match continues. Mm-hmm. You can tell. And just Fletcher just has control of the match, and Ospreay just keeps having to rally and be like, okay, I've got like 45 seconds of momentum in me. Let's see if I can win it in that.
I mean, I'm not always a fan of it in movies, but in wrestling, method acting really helps things along.
Yeah, so they also have a spot where they're like on their knees facing each other, and they start headbutting each other because, according to Ospreay, he got the nickname Billy Goat as a kid after actually headbutting a goat. I don't even know.
I don't know how smart that was, because the goat may be playing, but it can go to not playing real quick.
Yeah, but like all Ospreay matches, I could just list off a bunch of crazy spots, because it is incredible. Like I said, these two guys are their timing is perfect.
If you're familiar with him, guess one. He probably did it.
Yeah, like they have hidden blades, stormbreakers. Fletcher's still got that really nasty brainbuster he's using as a finish, which, again, classic case of what's kind of become a straightforward move, but just delivered right, it looks like an absolute match ender. But yeah, Ospreay stays in it, and we finally get the go-in where Fletcher gets him up for one. Ospreay somehow spins in midair as he's being dropped from the brainbuster position into a Hurricane Rana, flips him over, and then gets him into a Styles Clash, which he's been doing for a while, and normally it's either a 2 count or it's what he does on the way to the next move. And what I can only assume is like a call out for AJ Styles to come over to AEW and stop them.
Either that, or it's just like people go like, there, he did it. Now shut up.
But yeah, he does. The Styles Clash gets it done in this match. Will Ospreay advances to the finals of the Continental Classic. After the match, he is kneeling on the mat, looking across at Fletcher, and he holds up the index finger on each hand facing him. And for a minute, I thought he'd lost so much blood that he'd forgotten how to flip someone off. He was actually saying, "Now we're 1-1," so they're definitely teasing another rematch down the line. But
it's all tied up.
Yeah, and he stumbles to the back, just barely looking like he can make it like a straight way up the ramp.
He probably couldn't.
Yeah. So
I think at the end of that match, I said, "Get that man a cookie, some orange juice."
Oh, yeah.
And but you know what was funny? By the end of that match, when the blood had finally stopped, just cascading down him, and he cleaned up, it stopped a little bit. It was funny how hilariously fake it looked at that point. Like, it wasn't fake. It was gushing the whole time. But once it cleared up a little bit and started drying, it looked like he had a giant SpaghettiO stain on him.
Like he had just dunked his face into a bowl of marinara or something.
Yeah, that or like tomato soup. It was just like,
so great match, great opener. I gave it 4.5. I mean, Ospreay just always delivers on. I mean, matches in general, but his pay-per-views are always so exciting. And definitely a right person to fill out the end of the Continental Classic bracket.
And I hope you didn't need to go to the bathroom, because here comes match 2.
Yeah, so Kazuchika Okada, who is the defending Continental Classic champion, although he didn't actually participate last year, versus Ricochet. So Okada has been an interesting case because he was one of their big deal signings of 2024.
Oh, yeah.
And compared to the just explosive year that, say, Ospreay's had, it's hard to feel like Okada's quite been that big a deal. He's like, he has sort of star energy.
Well, he was kind of all wrapped up in the EVP shenanigans.
Yeah. So it's hard to imagine, like, okay, what is his place now that the Bucks are off TV for the time being? I think by the end of this night, we get a hint at maybe what Okada's future is going to be.
Right.
But the Continental Classic, which I'm just going to call the CC for time saving, it's such a showcase for so many talents. And Okada's just got a very solid, but often kind of basic style. Like, it doesn't have the flash or the high energy. I mean, he'll snap off one of those drop kicks and it's just insane. But it's easy for him. He can feel a little bit lost in the shuffle over the last few weeks. And then he gets on a pay-per-view, and it really feels like he locks in. Like, we see like a leveled up Okada.
I feel like it's kind of under that principle. It's like he's only doing enough that he only feels that he has to. And then when it's like, when someone starts really challenging him, it's like, all right, now I'll show my full power.
Which I liked a lot here because he's a 4-time, I think, G1 winner.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they keep hyping. He's one of the best tournament wrestlers in the world.
Yeah.
And the idea that, so he's a guy who knows how to, like, pace himself, to not run out of gas, to do exactly what you need to win, and then save yourself for the next round. And it was interesting to see that in this match with Ricochet, who's also been kind of trying to, it feels like, reinvent himself a little bit from being like the high spot, crazy athletic guy to somebody.
Yeah, because he got there, and the high of him being there is like, now that he's settling in, it's like now we have to figure out what he's going to do.
Yeah, and his match with Takeshita at Full Gear felt like kind of an attempt at that just didn't quite work. Like, he's working a much more grounded style, a lot less of the crazy athletics, and especially against a guy like Takeshita who can go that far and that fast. It felt a little sluggish. This worked a lot better, I thought. You had him, because he still comes off as more high-flying, more intense compared to Okada, but Okada's just keeps grounding him or keeps matching him and meeting him there. So, yeah, the story they were telling against each other I thought was really fun in this. Also amazed how quickly Ricochet's locked into this new heel thing, because I was when I was watching the Dynamite where I guess they started all this with my wife, Gina, bless your heart, Brafford, and Shelby Death Ray Patterson, hosts of This Is a Takeover. And so you got the segment where he comes out, the Hurt Syndicate have invited him to join, and Ricochet indicates that he wants to, and the Hurt Syndicate are basically like, no, kiss ass, get out of here. And he's just sort of like, oh, okay, cool, right, no problem. And just kind of like with his awkward smile gets out of the ring and walks away. And it's just like, what was that about? And then just gradually making him this guy who's clearly becoming more and more of a jackass, but trying to keep this sort of friendly smile on his face, like not showing that stuff is getting to him.
Two-faced asshole, yeah.
Pretty much. And then the crowd has noticed that he has a shaved head, so he is getting, holy bald.
Yeah, well, and he's really leaned into it and really encouraged it.
Yeah.
It's just because it is a great tool. It's like when a crowd is interested in something about you to chant.
Yeah.
Pushing it is a way to keep you getting noticed.
He gets a na 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 hey 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 you're bald.
That was the newest one, yeah.
The favorite moment of this match on social media was like Okada. I think he just does like a slam or something. Ricochet's on the mat, sitting up, a little stunned.
Yeah,
Okada, runs the ropes, goes like forward and back, and then left and right, and then just comes to a dead stop and dope slaps the back of Ricochet's head.
Yeah, just the disrespect.
And I will say that Okada's like, I am taking an extra moment for you to realize the contempt I have.
Oh yeah,
his timing on that is always impeccable.
It's like it's effectively it's like a paintbrush when wrestlers would just Razor Ramon / Scott Hall would do it a lot. Yeah. He would just get in guys' faces after he downed them and just like paint. It's like slap, like light slaps across their face just to humiliate them.
Yeah. So the go home for this one's pretty fun because you've got Ricochet trying to do his, I think he calls it the Spirit Gun finisher, which is basically like a running forearm, similar to the Hidden Blade, but delivered to the front. And Okada, I think he dodges it the first time, and then the second time catches it and just spins him into a Rainmaker.
Yep.
And gets him there for the pin. So really, really fun go home there. And so our finale is going to be
a great match between those two. Yeah.
Okada versus Ospreay. It's a 3.5. I give this one. Again, step down just from the insanity of Ospreay and Fletcher, but still really fun.
Yeah, but that's always good too. It's like everyone can't be 100% going at each other as hard as possible. It's it's a great match because one, they're both super talented, and two, they're playing very well into the roles that they have for themselves.
Yeah. Now, after the match, Okada heads to the back, but Ricochet is still in the ring, at which point Swerve Strickland comes out because they've been kind of just trading jabs backstage for a while. And he does note that, okay, he also got eliminated in the semifinals, so Ricochet got as far as he did. But Ricochet claimed he was going to win, and because he failed to do that, Swerve is going to come out and mock him for it. So because at Hammerstein Ballroom, fans were throwing toilet paper in at Ricochet, Swerve has Nana come out with a wagon full of toilet paper rolls.
Oh, yes.
Circle around the ring, handing them out to people. And you can also see the moment where Swerve realizes he's getting to the end of it, but Nana still has a bunch more to go. So he starts talking more slowly and giving more pauses. But he tells everyone to wish Ricochet a Happy New Year. And on his cue, they just all throw toilet paper into the ring. And there is this shot.
As Ricochet stands stock still, and it just it streamers over him.
Like two go across his torso in this perfect way. And he just has his head slightly bowed, just looking like he knows something has gone horribly wrong.
Just an embarrassed but angry 1,000-yard stare in his.
And it's great because, again, Ricochet's the heel. He's been the heel for a bit, but Swerve is being such a dick in this moment that you're kind of excited to see what Ricochet is going to get back at him with.
And apparently on Wednesday he did.
I have seen a photo of Ricochet in a white shirt with a tie and like CPA glasses on, covered in blood. So I can only assume.
I saw another picture. It was Swerve barely sitting up, bloodied, and Ricochet sitting in a folding chair across him. And it's just.
Which is just, I think the guy who gets pushed too far is a great thing for Ricochet because that's always been sort of the famous thing for him is that he's this phenomenal athlete, just great worker, but almost anybody can just cook him on a microphone. He's not a great promo guy. And just have him be that guy who just is so sick of that being the way people get over and just snaps with the physical stuff. Yeah, I'm excited to see where he's going.
Yeah, I think it's a good point to the character where it's like he can be this kind of snivelly a-hole, but at the same time, he's a dangerous man.
Yeah.
And you need to be reminded of that.
We also get a brief backstage segment where Ospreay is finally getting some medical attention, but of course he pushes the doctor away.
He barely
so he can
has a bandage on.
Yeah. He's gotten one little gauze pad, one cotton swab out of a bag, and he pushes the guy away so he can talk to Renee about how he's gonna, the crowd's gonna get him through, and you can see his eyes coming in and out of focus.
That's what you want. A man who has just had heavy blood loss. Just put a microphone in his face.
Oh, man. So they're building up to that. And then we...
Hold on. And at the end of that, Ospreay drops the first of quite a few F-bombs in this show.
Yes. We get a couple of those coming up.
He literally ends it with, let's fucking go.
Yeah. And then I hope he lay down for at least a few minutes.
No, that would have been how I'd have done it. Let's fucking go. Straightforward. Just straightforward to passed out.
And you just see the doctor come in with like a box card or something.
Yeah, he's like, oh jeez, come on.
All right, so after the blood-soaked crazy man rants, we go into a Tijuana street fight for the Women's World Championship with Mariah May defending against Thunder Rosa. I will say, I liked the choice they made not to have this fight get super bloody. It's a street fight, so it's got some gnarly spots, but I think after rightfully emphasizing what a beating Ospreay's taken, having either Rosa or Mariah bust open would have probably felt a little unnecessary.
They put a lot of work into it.
Yeah. This was just really well paced. I thought they did a nice job of instead of having, a chair come out and get used, it's just moving to each thing and then discarding. So, at one point Mariah gets out a bottle of tequila, takes a swallow or a drink, and then sprays it in Rosa's face. And then Rosa grabs it, smashes it in her head, and they move on to the next thing. So it's I think this is no, it's not a rematch. Rosa had a feud, I think, with Anna Jay or someone a while
Something
ago.
like that, yeah.
But yeah, so she's become kind of one of their go-to street fight people, and her dad, Papa Rosa, was in the front row, so watching his daughter get body slammed onto a pile of thumbtacks, as I'm sure every father dreams of.
Well, all I could think about was how great he looked in his cowboy hat and amazing mustache.
Oh my gosh, he had a great mustache. Just if you'd asked me to pick Thunder Rosa's dad out of a lineup, I would be like, I don't know if it's this guy, but I sure hope so. Yeah, so a lot of fun spots through. As always, the person who sets up the thumbtacks ends up being the one who gets thrown on them.
But where were the thumbtacks?
So when Thunder Rosa comes out, she has a piñata with her. Oh, that's nice. But then during the match, she has a moment where she comes to the middle, splits open the piñata, and we just see thumbtacks go pouring to the ground. And of course, like I said, she gets slammed on them, and then poor Aubrey Edwards has to try to count with her hand, like to find a place on the mat that does not have tacks on it.
She knew what job she signed up for.
And again, Rosa, to her credit, like for the rest of the match, she's visibly got tacks sticking out of like her back all the way down to just above her thighs. So painful looking spot, but she just trucks through. Also, fun moment for Mariah May. In a great moment of heel work, she gets in Papa Rosa's face, then grabs his cane and does like a bent over, hunched old man walk with it.
And steals his hat, yeah.
Yeah, and now, of course, Thunder Rosa knocks her out. Instead of giving the cane back to her dad, uses it to beat Mariah while she's on the ground.
Right, priorities, man.
Yeah, and then I think she just throws it off in a random direction. Yeah, I'm glad they got Mariah back on a pay-per-view, because there was a while where...
Well, it was, I don't know if it was the last one, but one of them, she just came out and did a segment on it, like a TV segment.
Yeah, that was Full Gear. She and Mina had a champagne celebration that ended with Mariah turning on Mina, setting up a match on Dynamite. So, it was a weird thing where coming out of All In, she was not doing a lot of actual title defense. So it seems like they're trying to pick that up, and I'm hopeful for it, because I really like her in the ring. I still feel like they need a story with a little more personal intensity. Yeah. But yeah, the matches they've been building to are a lot of fun.
So maybe it's because I didn't get to watch the build to it. But I like it was a really good match. I wish I had liked it more.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't really feel anything behind it, but it was a good match.
Yeah, it's largely in the execution, in kind of the sense that Rosa is, one of the people who lost a title without being pinned for it, so that's always going to be kind of the chip on her shoulder.
Right.
Ends with a great spot. So Rosa sets up a table at ringside, but only puts up one end of the legs. Then
that was fun.
Runs up at a ramp to do a drop kick. At some point, the other two legs get set up, and Mariah does a Storm Zero off the ring apron through the table for the 3 count, which is a very, very nice spot. Again, that we didn't have a lot of barbed wire pulled across faces or glass shoved in people's mouths or whatever. That it just, the weapons are there to be used as weapons. It's not really full death match style. So, yeah, I gave it 3 3/4, actually. I really liked this one. I also forgot, one of the things that Thunder Rosa brought was a bag of dirt from a Tijuana graveyard. And I wanted to write pocket sand, because it does end with Mariah grabbing it and throwing it in her face to blind her before the pile driver.
That's right. I forgot she brought that out, because when it happened, I was like, well, that's definitely the talc in the face spot, but I don't. Okay, whatever.
Look at the Jack Sparrow line. I've got a bag of dirt. I've got a bag of dirt. Oh, second Pirates of the Caribbean. Oh, it's definitely in the top 5 movies.
I know. I'm just sandbagging this for fun.
Sandbag, nice. All right, so that gets us to the feud that would not die. Maxwell Jacob Friedman defending the Dynamite Diamond Ring against Adam Cole. We can talk a little more later about how AEW has kind of struggled with some of their long-term storytelling.
Well, when both of the people involved can't stop getting themselves hurt, and then they got to go film a movie.
But it's also just 2 guys who have been doing wrestling, as long as Adam Cole, or who just have clearly just the natural understanding that MJF does for all this. just a feud where it's really still not clear who the good guy is. It's clear who they want you to think the good guy is.
Just because the break in between, they were just like, fuck it, reset.
Yeah, and just have Adam Cole be like, oh, no, I betrayed Max because he would have betrayed me. And Max be like, yeah, I was going to do that, sure.
That's not how that was going, man.
It seems like the easiest thing in the world to just have Cole come out and be like, I had a lot of time to think while I was injured. I realized, I went down a dark path, but you know what? MJF's gone further. There's no way to get him back, so I'm the one who's got to stop him.
And then MJF comes back out and goes, I don't accept. It's like I don't accept that. It's like you fucked me over. Fuck you.
Yeah, just acknowledge that he was the bad guy back then. It was a 6-month story. It was clearly building to him as the bad guy, and then you can have turns like that in wrestling. It happens all the time. Just the heel turns face and apologizes. Face turns heel and says, screw you, I'm going to kill you. But
they just kind of walked back all of the vulnerability they gave MJF.
Yeah. Just the whole story is really muddy, which is a shame because I like these guys in the ring together. They've got, good energy. They work pretty well, but
I'm hoping after this is what they need to basically reset pieces and try again.
Yeah, give them both just some time to work other stuff, and then we can circle back on this.
Yeah.
I'd also forgotten that MJF had defended the Dynamite Diamond ring every year since 2019 when he first won it. Because I know he's always got it, but it's like, I looked and they're like, at least around October or later every year he's had either he's faced the winner of a Battle Royal or he's won it in a Battle Royal himself, but he has actually retained it against Adam Page, Orange Cassidy, Dante Martin, Ricky Starks, and Juice Robinson.
That just shows you how important it is.
Yeah.
It's super important, guys.
And then he almost lost it, apparently, while traveling to England.
Did he lose it, or did someone steal it? I can't remember that.
Unclear. I think they've always been kind of fuzzy on that. In kayfabe, I think Garcia said he stole it and used the money to pay for plane tickets.
Yeah.
But, at some point, it was legitimately not in his possession, but they
found it, yeah. Turned up somewhere, and they got it back.
Somewhere. So, like I said, good match. The people we were watching with noted that because Ospreay comes out with his usual cool Assassin's Creed looking robe.
Yeah.
Then MJF comes out in a very kind of by his standards plain looking robe.
Well, he's worn that before, that style anyway, where it's just it doesn't fully cinch.
Yeah.
It has a zipper on the front and it goes from chest to upper thigh. And everything, and the robe just kind of hangs off from there. And it's interesting because it's open shoulder and it's kind of open legged. And it's he's done the traditional Ric Flair style robe before.
Yeah. So usually there's a little more of a peacock nature to it, but this one seemed a little. But then he gets to the ring and they drop a football sized banner that just says, I think, "You're welcome."
Yeah, thank me later.
Thank me later. There it goes.
He should drop one that says the people behind this can't see.
For all we know, it does say that on the far side because it looks like it blocks a solid 12 rows of people on the hard cam side.
Almost the whole crowd on the hard cam shot.
So hopefully they didn't keep that down too long. But so he and Adam Cole comes out with Matt Bennett and Mike Bennett and Matt Taven of Undisputed Kingdom. But he's I guess technically the face, so they're mainly just staying at ringside until midway through the match when MJF pulls a Guerrero.
Yeah, they're trying to make sure MJF doesn't grab the ring and use it to cheat.
Yeah, but what he ends up doing is throwing himself into the steel steps while the ref's back is turned.
He slams them and then falls over. Yeah, you're right. It's purely a Guerrero. He slams the steps and falls over and yells.
And then when the ref turns, he's pointing at both of them. So they get thrown out, and it's again, it's a fun match. I think they both end up bleeding. I think it looked like Cole used a blood pack.
He might have because it's looking at it, it's oh, that looks super fake.
Just unfortunate after we've had such a strong example of
after
what severe bleeding looks like.
After seeing Ospreay bleed like he did, his stopped too soon and it kind of looked like it just kind of cascaded in a very specific area, and it was just if it was real, I don't know what to say because it looked fake, unfortunately.
Yeah, just bad luck if so. Sorry, your blood clotted wrong for television. So again, solid match. MJF is targeting Cole's ankle, they're selling that he's still got that injury.
Yeah. Or he's if it's healed, it's weak, and I'm going to attack it.
Yeah. And so after Taven and Bennett are getting thrown out, MJF does in fact get the diamond ring on, but as soon as he gets back into the ring, he hits a super kick, which lets Cole grab the ring. but because the ref's back is still turned, MJF kicks him in the groin before he can use it. And then he does, I think it's called the Heat Seeker, that DDT he does from between the ropes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so he
it's kind of like a faster version of the one Orton does.
Yeah, or I think Tommaso Ciampa, I think, has a finisher like that too.
Yeah.
So that's he gets the pin with that, and afterwards he grabs a chair. So he's retained his Dynamite Diamond ring 6 years in a row. Grabs a chair, looks like to do a little more damage, and then Roderick Strong makes his return, comes charging down to the ring. MJF backs up the ramp, and Kyle O'Reilly comes out behind him and drags him back into the ring. And we get into this sort of awkward moment where the heel who won the match gets a 3-on-1 beatdown from the faces.
The crowd, it's weird because it's like they want to cheer them, but at the same time, because it's a kind of like it's a massive beatdown.
Yeah,
they do boo it at first a little bit.
MJF doesn't have like Wardlow or anybody with him who has to get like driven off so he can get what's coming to him.
It's supposed to be like his just desserts, but at the same time the crowd kind of reacts still, and it's like no, but we like you guys, yay.
Yeah. And Cole takes the ring and puts it on and lays MJF out with it, and then Taven Bennett come out. So it looks like this is the new fully formed faction, is Strong, O'Reilly, Cole, Taven, and Bennett.
Yeah.
And the crowd does cheer when they like stand together and raise their hands.
Yeah.
The beatdown of MJF, just nobody was quite sure what to do with that. So
it was interesting because it wasn't so much mixed as it was kind of an acceptance, because it starts as kind of like boos and then it just turns into cheers.
Yeah. I saw one of the most interesting observations I saw over the last week was somebody pointed out that kind of the success of bringing stuff over to AEW from other promotions, usually WWE, but from wherever, is if you just try to recapture like a former glory, like to do a thing that worked before, but again, it doesn't tend to work. The one exception to that might be the Hurt Syndicate, depending on how that goes. But like,
I think you mean the Hurt Legally Distinct.
But it's like they had, I'm trying to think who their kind of main example of that was. Like Malachi Black has just kind of struggled because it feels like he's trying to do the same thing he did in WWE, and they don't really have an idea of where to go with that. Versus,
even though he has, I mean, he has varied it up and done different things. It's just like, at the same time, it's. Yeah, I see. I get what you're saying.
And I mean, you have people like, say, like, Miro, who, God knows where he is now, but when he did the God's Champion thing, he was like one of their hottest guys on the mid card for a while, because it's like, okay, yeah, they're letting him be like this dangerous, interesting monster heel for a while. Or, like Claudio becoming like not just a great guy to have a match against on the mid card, but actually like this superhuman, like strong, fast guy.
Right.
And that seems to be kind of what they're running into with Adam Cole, is they keep doing like variants on the Undisputed Kingdom, Undisputed Era, Unite, Breakup, whatever. And it just feels like it's constantly looking to the past instead of building something new for him to move into.
Well, I think part of the problem is they can't move past that bit yet because of the false starts thanks to injuries and various issues.
Yeah. So
it's like if they can just keep it together and move forward from this point, then they should be able to build something. But
yeah. So it's like so much that I will criticize about AEW. Nothing is not fixable. It's just that they just clarity is needed, and a sense of like, where is everything going to be 6 months from now, with the caveat that, like you said, injuries will happen, plans will have to change.
It's absolutely to the credit of AEW that they won't try to gloss over it. They won't try to force it if they won't try to force it. They're like, they've got such and such an injury, they're going to be out for this long, we'll try to do something when they're back, but it's like they need to they need to get rest.
Yeah. So I ended up giving this one 2 3/4. The match is fine. It's just the storyline is so muddy, and it's frustrating to see two really talented guys.
That's the quickest thing. Again, not, like you said, not to say the match is bad, but it's like the quickest thing to kind of cool me out on watching a wrestling match is when there's nothing interesting happening story-wise.
Yeah.
Like, functionally, this is great. But what draws me to wrestling is also the underlying story.
And again, I'm a believer that story does not have to mean like, oh, you spilled lemonade on me in catering or whatever. Story can be what these two guys tell, of just, even if they just both got into a wrestling ring because they're wrestlers, they showed up to work, and this match got booked. You can still tell a great story just starting from there.
That's because the story isn't simply like kickoff event, like you said, like spilling something or And it's when they're also in the ring and what their personalities, how their personalities react, and do to overcome what they're being faced with.
Yeah,
it's like do they power through and act like and just become a stronger version of themselves, be the best version of themselves? Do they roll out? Do they find some underhanded way to gain the advantage again?
Yeah.
That's also a story.
Yeah, and if they cheat, is it to offset the way the other guy is cheating?
Did the other guy cheat first? Are they just cheating back, or are they just?
It's a really interesting thing that for all that it's built around, just beating the crap out of people to settle disputes, the moral clarity of wrestling is just it's a very old-fashioned sense of morality of right and wrong in how wrestling rules are built. And
it's interesting how stark and how muddy it can be at times, because the entire philosophy of what's right and wrong in wrestling is also built on the foundation of your job is to fight your coworkers, to beat them down, to either gain a pinfall or submission or win somehow. And your career depends on how well you can do that and how often you can do that.
Yeah.
And the morality of it gets muddy, because it's like, if you're winning, you're getting attention, you're advancing.
Yeah, and to do all that while still, like, you're the top good guy because you've done all that while still being, sportsmanlike and honorable, unless you're like kind of the classic Stone Cold figure where you do it by being an anti-hero who raises hell. Because like you said, it can get muddy.
Yeah, guys like Stone Cold are interesting because it's like, by all rights, they're the villain until you point them in a different direction toward other villains.
Yeah, to someone who deserves everything they're doing.
Yep.
So moving away from that, I think we come to a match that has some story background, but I think really is just awesome because of the two people you have in the ring. Konosuke Takeshita defending the International Championship against Powerhouse Hobbs.
Oh, there's always room for that, too.
And again, there is a story here that Hobbs was part of the Callis family, went out with a leg injury. He comes back, and I appreciate this. They don't try to drag out like the will he, won't he leave the Callis family. He shows up as a face immediately and is like, you guys cut me loose as soon as I was hurt, and now I'm coming after you.
That's perfect. He's like, yeah, I didn't hear anything from you guys after I got hurt. I'm after you now.
Yeah, and Takeshita, he's got a lean build, so you forget how strong the guy is, but he's in there trading chops with Hobbs, who's built like a refrigerator, and both guys look like they're doing equal amounts of damage.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this is just it's the meat chant match of the night, which I feel like Hobbs is going to be one of those guys who gets those wherever he goes, but Takeshita kept up with him. Not a lot to talk about, which isn't to say, again, it's not a bad match at all. It's a fun story of Hobbs is still recovering from that leg injury, so that's where Takeshita keeps targeting him.
Yep. And it's just hard-hitting action between the two of them.
Yeah.
This did have a really fun moment to me where I think it was this the match where Hobbs almost won and Callis freaked out about it and jumped out of his seat?
Yeah, he's in commentary with...
I thought immediately, he's going to try and find a screwdriver again. But then Takeshita kind of recovered, so he sat back down.
Just imagine, like, Shivani at ringside. Why are you looking through your pockets? Get out of my pockets. What are you doing? Had something with me.
But yeah, he freaked out, and the commentary was like, what?
Yeah, Callis is still fun for me. I don't think... The Callis family still sort of just feels like a bunch of good wrestlers in a group rather than like a cohesive unit, but it's still like Callis works well with all of them. So,
which makes sense given he's the way he's presenting himself and how he's curating these wrestlers.
Yeah. So very methodical pace, power against power. Ends up with Takeshita going over Hobbs. He's taking so many hits to the knee, so the idea is it's swelling up beneath the brace he's wearing, so he tears the brace off.
He's like, I need to keep going. If I keep the brace on, it'll make it too hard to work.
But as soon as he takes it off, Takeshita basically just kicks it out from under him.
Yep.
It's a cool thing. He puts him in a guillotine choke, and you can see Hobbs is kind of fading, so you think it's just going to end by TKO. But right as Hobbs starts to go limp, Takeshita basically deadlifts him up into his, I think it's called a Raging Fire, is that sort of deadlift drop, which... Every time he picks up Hobbs, he makes him look like he weighs nothing. Like, it is so easy to forget how strong Takeshita is.
It's a little deceptive because you can tell he's a big guy and he is jacked. He is built. But he's not like over jacked. He's not like super muscular. So it's like there's a little bit of you can kind of forget just how strong he is.
It's by the standards of pro wrestling, because you're used to the big guys having a certain, like, looking more like Hobbs.
Right.
And then you're just like, no, actually you can, like, have power in your upper body that does not automatically translate to that kind of build. But yeah, so he pins Hobbs. He wins clean. Like you said, Callis looks like he's going to get up and interfere at one point, but doesn't. Takeshita, I mean, he's targeting the leg, so he's being kind of ruthless. But yep, goes over clean, retains. I gave it 4 1/4. Just solid match. Excited to see where Takeshita takes the title next. This is the kind of thing I was hoping for when he won the title. Just like let this guy go against people, and hopefully they've got some. I think he's defending it at New Japan's event this weekend as well. I don't remember where, but I think they're trying to continue the thing of having the international championship actually be defended in other companies in other countries.
Yeah, and this match also points out, I think, something they're really smart about doing. I think they're, with the opponents that Takeshita's facing, is like they're showing off different aspects of him. Like he's been showing himself off to be more technical in some matches. This one showed off his power.
Yeah.
And his cunning, because it's like he took advantage of Hobbs' leg. Or knee, specifically.
Oh, yeah. So let's see. Next up, we have Mercedes Moné defending the TBS Championship against Chris Statlander. I'm not even going to say it's I mean, yeah, it's pretty much the kayfabe reason is they had a great match at Full Gear, so they decided to run it back again.
Yeah, that's literally it. Run it back.
Yeah, there wasn't really like any story for Statlander earning another shot or anything. It was just they had a great match. Let's give them another one. And there are worse reasons to have a wrestling match, because honestly, I think after All In, there was maybe a moment of slight like fear of buyer's remorse on Tony Khan's part, because Mercedes and Britt Baker did not have a good match that night. So I think there was this instance like, okay, I've got to get her in a run of really good defenses, and that's worked out, honestly.
And it's also really easy to kayfabe, to be like the powers that be saw that match, saw how intense it was, and it's like, do it again.
It's the advantage of Tony being pretty off screen as an authority figure, as you really can just, I believe he did that.
I believe the wrestling nerd who was on forums in the 90s went back and said, that was cool, let's do it again.
Yeah, the one thing I'm struggling with, though, is it also sort of makes me worry that AEW is struggling to, in their women's division, build faces who feel ready for the top title.
It's true.
'Cause I think you've got Jamie Hayter. Tony Storm can always come back. But I'm trying to think of who in like the last year has really stepped up while Hayter and Tony were out, and it's just...
They tried for a while with Hikaru Shida.
Shida's weird because she'll show up, she'll have a great match, and then they just kind of don't have her around. Like when she's not challenging for the title, she's just not on television.
There's that, and I think she just probably has other fulfillment things to fulfill, dates to fulfill.
Yeah, I think she's also does like some acting and she's got other career stuff she's doing. But
you're right. There is kind of a problem in that regard, where it's like they've got a great amount of like people who are able to step in as a heel and just clamp down and take control. But they don't. You're right. They don't really have a good array of faces there to counter anything.
So they've got Willow Nightingale, who I think is definitely somebody who's in line for a championship, but she already had her shot and lost at Mercedes, I think at All Out, and I think she's had a feud with Mariah too. That like she's had her chances, and so I mean you can cycle her back in, but it's just sort of I don't know. I'm glad that they're they've got 2 women's titles and they're moving them through potential opponents really well, but it's been a while since they've had a women's match where I was like, oh, this person might take it. I would say Statlander at Full Gear, I thought. I was like, okay, she might actually go over tonight. Not so much now. This felt like just let's give Mercedes another good defense, which, again, not a bad way to book, but I'm hoping that's something that people are thinking about going into 2025, because I think Willow Nightingale and either Tony Storm or Jamie Hayter will probably be champions by this time next year.
They really do need more strong female face personalities.
Yeah. I think it's also tricky because AEW doesn't do a lot of like face-to-face segments. Most of their promos are built with just like, talking to the camera backstage.
Yeah.
You don't have a lot of like 2 people out with microphones just building, which is fine. That's not like... That's the way WWE's always done it, but that's not the way it has to be all the time in wrestling.
Right, and a lot of the ones that you listed off were just like, those are just kind of like the classic bits where it's just like a pretty singular thing sometimes.
So that's a thought for 2025. But what we got for this match, I thought really strong. Ended up being the longest match of the night and the longest match I think ever on AEW television. Goes 24 minutes, 35 seconds. Moved pretty fast for that. Just didn't feel draggy.
Yeah.
I do appreciate they didn't just run it back. It felt like a story where both women had kind of reviewed the last match and were coming at it with like, okay, I know they're going to do this, so I'm going to be ready for this. That like Full Gear, Mercedes' strategy was basically like knee strikes, knee strikes, knee strikes. She hit something like 10 Meteoras, it felt like, because it makes sense. She can't overpower Statlander, so she's trying to hit her like with speed and distance. And this time Statlander just keeps kind of boxing her in, like going in close, and Mercedes is now trying to create that distance for herself. So just, yeah, I liked that it did feel like there was an evolution of the story in how the match was fought, even if there wasn't much of a story in why they're actually having it.
Yeah.
Also gets maybe the biggest pop of the night, outside of a match that did involve Ospreay when I think it's Statlander. No, Mercedes gives Statlander a tombstone on the apron. Statlander rolls to the outside looking dead, and Mercedes just gets in the ring, kind of leans against the rope sitting down like, oh, wow, thank God that's over, and waits for the count. And it's, the 1, 2, 3. And right at like, as the ref is raising their hands for 10, Statlander dives in under the ropes, and the camera just catches Mercedes' face changing as she realizes, oh, she got through right behind me.
Oh, and, yeah, no, that was a really good moment from Statlander.
Yeah, it's a real challenge for somebody who's like got obviously the power of Statlander to come off as being disadvantaged in the match, but I think they kind of get there by having Mercedes sort of chop her down, and after that she's still really working defensively for most of it. If I remember right, yeah, Mercedes tries to get her in, I think an STF. Statlander gets to the ropes, and then oh, right, 'cause she loses a boot at one point. She also almost gets counted out because her foot gets caught in the...
So she takes the boot off, yeah.
And then Mercedes is targeting that for the rest of the match. Gets her in an ankle lock. Statlander tries to roll clear, and Mercedes wrestles her into a crucifix, which holds her down just enough for a 3 count.
Yep.
So again, it's one of those like skin of the teeth victories, but it is, again, a clean win for the heel. So Mercedes retains. I gave this one a 4. I think I'm still struggling with Mercedes as a character, like her promo work. It's not even that it's bad, it just doesn't feel in place on AEW television. Like it's still very WWE style, but I think she's really, in the back half of 2024, she's been one of their most consistent in-ring people. So yeah, good win, good match. And afterwards, she actually grabs her belt and like scurries to the back so Statlander can get like a big ovation from the crowd. So it's really nice to see that. I think both the women's matches got a really good reaction, which sometimes they can be the popcorn matches. Did not feel like that was the case tonight. Although I cannot say I would have blamed them, because the next match we come to is the final in the Continental Classic with Okada versus Will Ospreay. And Ospreay comes down, and he's got just a bandage wrapped around his forehead.
He suddenly, like, the euphoria wore off, and now he's selling the fact that he's super wobbly.
Yeah.
And he has the bandage around his head, and you see the dark red spot.
Yeah. He's just got a slight, like, nervous smile on his face, maybe. So, but again, that's the story, is that, like, he put, like, 115% into his match with Fletcher, and now he's coming into this match with a pretty empty tank. And Okada comes out looking pretty fresh after everything. For all that, it was interesting. I mistakenly thought at the time that all of the Continental Classic matches tonight were going to be under the CC rules that you have to win in 20 minutes. But because you need to have a winner of the tournament, apparently that rule didn't apply. It did work out that way, though. All the matches came in under 20. And this one it was 19 minutes, but it felt like a battle.
It did, yeah.
Okada just, again, recognizing that he's weak. I think he rips off the bandage at one point and then headbutts him to reopen it.
Yeah, he does.
Ospreay, again, just the fighting spirit rallying and just trying to do all these high spots, but clearly it's costing him more and more each time. Oh, man. Like I said earlier, Okada just seems like he does unlock his higher level when he's on a pay-per-view, and this was the most I've been impressed by him. And again, it could be that he and Ospreay go back a ways in New Japan. I think Ospreay said he always considered Okada one of his mentors, and similarly, they're on a rhythm. Okada gets that great spot where he's in position for the hidden blade. Ospreay's running, and you see Okada's eyes flick as he's looking over at the screen because you can see on camera.
People pointed that out. He's on the action's on the big screen, so he sees Ospreay gearing up for it,
and so he knows exactly when to duck. So Ospreay goes flying past him.
It's a nice meta moment when wrestlers are smart enough to utilize the fact that there's a giant screen showing what's happening, right?
So similarly, I can't just list off spot after spot, but this was a great match. I don't think this year's CC had quite the it sounds stupid when I say CC too. I don't know. There's no win here.
Con class.
There we go.
No, absolutely not. It's terrible.
It didn't quite have the through line of Eddie Kingston's run last year where he put both of his championships on the line to enter it.
That's because Eddie Kingston currently can't run.
Yeah. Insurance is a scam. Everything on television would always be better if Eddie Kingston was involved, but I think, the Death Rider story especially, man, that needs him.
I can't wait for Eddie Kingston to come back and address his enemies.
Apparently, he tried to call Matt Menard on the pre-show.
And Menard showed a screenshot from his phone that Eddie tried to call him like 13 times.
Just at one point, like you can see him looking at his phone and then putting it back in his pocket while they're doing the pre-show talk.
It's like, what do you want him to do, man? He's on TV. He's live.
Oh, Menard's going to hear about that later. So yeah, despite not having that emotional story, it still was like fun run of great matches. Okada does go over. He after ducking the hidden blade, because they've traded finishers at this point. Ospreay does kick out of a Rainmaker. Okada kicks out of a Stormbreaker. But he finally does hit him with another Rainmaker, and Ospreay just cannot get back up from that. So Okada pins him to retain his Continental Championship. Somebody pointed out all champions retain on this match, and even though Okada didn't win the Classic last year, he won the title off of Eddie Kingston in a match later on. Similar to how Eddie went into the tournament with 2 belts and came out of it with 3, both years in a row, like the status quo has been maintained at the end of the tournament, which is kind of interesting and makes you kind of wonder if what they're going to do to sort of break that pattern in the third. Great match. I gave it 4 3/4. It bumps up just a little bit because one of the things I factor in is just sort of the pop, like the big imagery of it.
Yeah.
And normally I try not to count like post-match segments necessarily, but what happens after this,
I think you need to.
Yeah. So Okada gives Ospreay a handshake, a nice a show of respect. Ospreay goes back up the ramp, but apparently fan camera shows instead of going out the tunnel, he goes and sits a little ways off towards one of the entrances. Like so he's still able to see the stage. Because Christopher Daniels comes out to explain that he can't present the Continental Classic title to Okada because he is no longer an EVP for All Elite Wrestling, but this man is. And then we hear the music for the first time in over a year of Kenny by God Omega. The crowd goes nuts. Kenny comes out looking sharp in a suit, picks up that belt, walks down, hands it to Okada, and the two of them just stare down with the all-in sign framed between them in the camera.
What could that mean?
There's really no way of knowing. I think they're both going to WWE.
Oh, okay. A WrestleMania sign was off to the side. And they pointed at it.
It is so good to see Kenny back in the company. Just after a concern that he might never be able to wrestle again from the diverticulitis. So, yeah, him doesn't seem like they're going to have a match right away. But yeah, I'm curious to see how Kenny fits into this world now that the Bucks are out for the time being. If they don't want him in a feud with Okada right away, does he go after the Death Riders? Because
I was about to say since he's on screen in EVP now. I mean, I'm guessing he already is, but I mean, and now he's on screen EVP. Now he can step in as an authority figure to help try to corral the Death Riders.
Yeah. Well, that is something I don't think. Yeah, he's not planned for AEW television, I think, until after his match in Japan, because his official in-ring return is going to be at a New Japan event.
Right.
But they also want to just have him back on AEW television. So, yeah, it is. Oh, man. They've always had a good roster in AEW, but the number of people who are back healthy and active at one time is maybe the strongest the company's ever been. So, Like they got the good cards. If they can play them, then like 2025 could be an amazing year for this company. All right, that brings us to our main event, which is a match I have complicated feelings about. Jon Moxley defending the World Championship in a 4-way match against Orange Cassidy, Jay White, and Hangman Adam Page. So, I started out feeling really strongly about the Death Rider story. Up to the Orange Cassidy match, I liked where they were going with it, and then maybe it's because they needed to recede a little bit for the Continental Classic to take center stage. They felt like just kind of another faction for most of the last month on television, give or take a couple of moments like when they shut down Rampage, which admittedly was right before Worlds End. So they had some momentum coming into it. But I'm not trying to find the way to say this. I was okay with this match when I watched it, and then thinking about it, I actually started liking it a lot less. And then a couple of days of reflection, I'm kind of in the middle of it, but it's got the bones of a good story. I like the idea. You've got Moxley as the heel, and you've got 3 more or less faces who are all teaming up against him, and he's also got his guys running in to interfere. But is that good?
No, you're good. Go ahead and finish your thought.
It's a basic thing is the problem, and the Death Riders are sort of teased as like this is a threat like nothing AEW's seen before, and the story of just the heel who's going to win because his faction is running in to back him up, it just feels pedestrian compared to what they set themselves up to achieve here with when Moxley took the belt from Danielson.
So it's interesting to me because now again I have not been able to watch the TV stuff, but I've seen bits and pieces thanks to Twitter and online stuff where I can sort of pick up. The Rampage thing is interesting to me because the idea that they have the power to shut down a show without like security or anybody storming in to toss them, that gets to me a little bit. That I know it's a common wrestling thing, but it's like there doesn't seem to be a way that they have like at least like when NWO did stuff like that, it's because Eric Bischoff, the guy in charge, would let them run rampant.
Yeah.
But there's no one in charge who is like, yay, Death Riders. There's just an absence of people showing up to try and corral, like to stop them. But I think the dynamic of the match is interesting to me because here is how it plays out. And I mentioned it when we were watching. Jon Moxley and his group is presenting themselves as these ultra badass terrors. But in reality, how I've seen them act is they're only tough when they have an advantage. When things start to even up, they bail, they run, they scramble to the hills because they know a united front stepping up to them is going to win. But what their advantage right now is the united front that should be forming, that should be coalescing, hasn't happened yet. It's not happening, and the AEW as a whole is kind of splintered despite the fact that they should be coming together. But everyone's personal issues are keeping them from actively becoming the bulwark to push them back.
Yeah, and that's definitely in the story of this match where you've got, Mox pretty much on his back foot anytime the other 3 guys are fighting together. And even when Claudio and Yuta show up, that like the 3 guys are still mainly holding their own.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that it feels like it's getting to the point where, like you said, they're supposed to be like, I would have liked to see at least 5 minutes of this match where Mox was almost holding his own. Not like straight 3-on-1, but that he just like, he before the bell rings, like he hits somebody with a chair or something to take them out and then is just fighting mean against the other 2. Like there's a delicate balance because you don't want to make these other 3 guys look like chumps who can't, win with an advantage. But how quickly Mox is just getting the crap kicked out of him and how quickly he needs his guys to come in and save him feels like it diminishes what they were trying to build. And
maybe, but at the same time, I see it as I see what they want. I see what they're wanting to do with that.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. I like that idea of like the tough front of the Death Riders is easily shattered when real resistance is met.
See, it's interesting because I feel like you're seeing that as like that is the kayfabe and that is the story they're telling. And the question that I have is like, is it supposed to be layered in that way, or is it genuinely that they want us to sincerely see the Death Riders that way, but the story isn't landing?
See, I can't say that for certain. I'm maybe I'm giving them more credit than I should with that, but because I want to enjoy it, I'm generously giving them that feeling of, I think this is what they're going for, or what I would like to think that they're going for.
I think it's just that there was this really strong sense with the videos that were cut after Moxley's win and after the turn on Danielson that like something was coming, that there was just something that they were going to bring into AEW. And there's a bit that from commentary on this match, because JR comes out to join Shivani and Excalibur, where Excalibur is like, John Moxley has a vision for AEW, and I think JR just kind of was, really, well, what is that, Excalibur? And there's just kind of a pause because they're like, well,
I think poorly communicated, but honestly, I think that could be the underlying message. Like, what is John Moxley's vision for AEW? He doesn't seem to really have one. He just knows he wants to just have chaos.
Honestly, leading into that, I could see working, having that be, because they keep building it as like, Orange Cassidy or whoever is fighting for the soul of AEW, but just to have a more concrete thing of, we are battling to stop this lunatic from running around and pouring chemicals down people's throats and breaking people's hands with hammers. There's a murderer running around who attacks people with deadly weapons. We are fighting to stop him from doing that.
Even for wrestling, that's a hostile workplace. This is beyond wrestling and fighting. He's literally attacking people backstage with the intent of maiming / potentially killing them. Someone step in.
This is different from having a violent wrestling match. This is just attacking people.
I know it's not great, but we have an HR department.
I was taking a sip of water, almost
sorry.
spat on the microphone.
I apologize, because I tend to do that to Gina a lot too, apparently.
But yeah, so I like the way you're seeing that, and I would really love to see them reoriented. It just sort of felt like the danger that they present has been sort of downplayed a little bit. I think because, understandably, you can't have them just break up matches and attack people.
Right.
Brian Gewirtz.
Not unless you're ready to commit to this being the focal point.
Right. What I think they need to do is just, and it's hard because he's the world champion, so he's always got to have a story where someone's coming at that, but just a sense of focusing on a few people at a time, not just coming out and challenging the entire locker room, but the Death Riders set their sights on one people or a group of people, and they attack them because that's against what their vision of AEW is.
And again, this is possibly me inserting the frog DNA into the missing gaps in the dino DNA. But I was gonna say this could also be compelling without the title, but I understand what they're going for, where he's basically taking the title hostage and essentially the welfare of the company hostage. And what's stopping people from really stopping him is the fact that they also want the title.
Yeah, and that I do like, because it does give the stakes of this match, and I appreciate that they never try to play it Cassidy looks offended when Jay White tries to attack him, because they all know coming into this only one of them can win.
You know who looked offended? Moxley, when he took a triple powerbomb through an announcer's table.
Oh, that's such a great moment. They don't do anything specifically Shield to follow up on, but yeah, that is a very deliberate the way they take him out of the match for a little bit. I
feel almost 100% certain Moxley told them to do that.
Oh yeah. And so, you've got, that's kind of the end of the first phase of everybody teaming up against Moxley, because right after that, I think Hangman takes the first swing. But
Hangman, of course, has his own insane issues right now, so it's you knew he wasn't going to be part of a coalition for long.
What is interesting is that Hangman, of the three guys, Hangman seems like the one that Mox identifies as the biggest threat.
Yes.
And he's also the one who comes closest to winning.
He's the wild card.
Because... Well, he has a great bit where it becomes a bit of a finisher spam match at a certain point. Orange Cassidy.
Everyone hits L1 at some point, yeah.
So at one point, I think Hangman literally clears the ring with buckshot lariats. He hits Orange Cassidy, and then he hits Jay White, and then he gives John Moxley a dead eye. Mox gets back up, and then immediately gets hit with a buckshot lariat again. Hangman goes for the pin, but there's no ref to count. How did that? Oh, right, because 3 minutes earlier when Orange Cassidy was pinning, Hangman yanked the ref out of the ring and beat him down on the outside.
No, that was Hangman going for a pin, wasn't it?
No, because Cassidy's going for the pin. Hangman's the one who yanks out the referee.
Right, I know that
And then
happened.
later when he goes for the pin,
right, yes.
He looks around and is just like, oh, crap.
Well, where's the ref?
Just
Oh yeah.
yeah, the consequences of his own aimless rage sinking in for him. Just I do not
It didn't sink in when he lit a house on fire. It sank in when he pushed a ref out of the ring too hard.
The character work of Hangman Page is just
It's true.
by a considerable margin. I think just consistently the best in wrestling. Just what he does in every match.
His physical acting and like his face acting are things to always pay attention to, because he's doing something to accentuate his character and how they're acting or feeling at the moment.
By the standards of pro wrestling, he knows how to go small in a way that like, which tends to translate to having like a big angry face on, but showing like the flicker of doubt in the eye.
He's good at playing to the crowd that's watching and also to the camera.
Yeah. Most wrestlers are really good at one and kind of learn to do the other, but it's rare to find someone who's that good at both. Yeah. So overall, like, again, only, I think it was a 17-minute match. Gets pretty hectic, keeps up a good pace.
Shenanigans happen, yes.
Yeah.
Hilarity ensues.
The Death Riders get involved pretty quickly and are just kind of running through. Marina Shafir gets involved, and Jay White, without really any fanfare, just gives her a Blade Runner.
I appreciated that someone finally was like, none of that from you anymore.
Yeah. But there is no like, oh, he thought it was someone else. It's like, no, I mean, she literally choked him unconscious on a previous episode.
It's like, no. Equal rights and equal lefts. Okay.
But unfortunately, right after he does that, he gets hit with a running knee in the face from Yuta. Mox gives him a Death Rider and pins him. So, like you said, I think that is the story they're telling there, that the three guys just cannot unite long enough to fight off the threat of Death Riders. So that's how Mox gets away with this.
You know which three guys can?
Well, FTR comes out, but there are only two guys.
Oh, you're right. I must have miscounted.
I thought I knew someone who... Yeah, so Adam
How do
Copeland,
we cope with this?
Adam Copeland returns with FTR after the match to chase out... Actually, no. He comes face-to-face with Mox, spears him, and then kicks out the bottom of a chair and locks him in a crossface with it, which the internet quickly pointed out he has now done
completed the set.
Every member, because he did it to Roman in their feud at WrestleMania, he did it to Seth, and now he's done it to Ambrose/Moxley. And so Mox eventually he gets out of the ring as he's taking his championship to the back. Copeland grabs a mic, cuts about 15 seconds of what seems like a pretty intense promo before he realizes the mic isn't working. Gets another one, and then just steps back in to remind.
That's
Mox.
always a classic moment in wrestling. It keeps happening where at a moment like that, someone goes to get a mic, they have forgotten to turn on the mic.
Yeah.
They trade a couple of mics, and finally he gets the one that's working.
Yeah. So he calls out Mox, and they are starting a feud with rated FTR against the Death Riders, which I've actually not had a chance to finish Dynamite this Wednesday, but apparently they had a pretty solid tag match.
Also, I don't mean to jump in just to be pedantic and correct you, but you keep saying Copeland. I'm sorry, but he's the rated R superstar Cope.
I don't want to believe that's a regular thing. That's just... Cope? Really?
I guess he just doesn't. I guess he's been used to Edge for so long that he doesn't want to keep using an elongated name. He just wants something short and sweet, and just don't know why he wants to go with Cope. But
somebody said, well, that means Christian Cage is going to change his name to Seethe for their last run together. Honestly, well, we do get a shot during this match where we pan up to one of the sky boxes and we see Christian Cage looking down with his, because he's still got the contract.
He and the patriarchy were sitting there just watching the match, and then
it's like that meme from Person of Interest where it's like there's a person sitting behind someone with a gun and someone sitting behind them with a gun, and then there's someone with a sniper rifle staring at all them.
And who was the other group that was sitting up there?
Hook is in a different skybox staring at Christian.
Yeah.
I wish we just cut to like Taz or somebody just elsewhere staring at Hook.
I just wanted to go completely around the upper boxes of this, just people just staring at each other.
I saw one theory that Copeland and Christian might align against the Death Riders, because Christian seems to have realized that trying to cash in while Moxley and the Death Riders are around would be a really bad idea.
Yeah.
So he's clearly just vulture-like waiting for whoever beats him first so he can cash in on them. And yeah, I can see like an enemy of my enemy thing where he's like, yeah, if you beat him, I'm going to cash in on you immediately, but I'm happy to help you get to that point.
Right.
And then, I'm curious to see where they're going. My money is still on Darby Allin being the plan to take the belt off Moxley.
More than likely.
The story here of Hangman and his idea that he'll come back from the place he went to against Swerve Strickland by winning the world title again, I have this vision of
It's a man desperately going, I can fix this, I can fix this.
They'll love me again if I do this.
That actually reminds me, a game recently came out, a big hit, and it's worth getting and playing because it's very much a sci-fi psychological horror kind of game called Mouthwashing. It's not something you would probably replay a lot, but it's definitely worth playing once. And I was thinking of that because the main character slash ultimate antagonist in the game kind of has that mentality about fixing his mistakes or his honestly crimes.
Oh,
like the terrible things he ends up doing. He's like, no, I can do this. I can fix this. I can make this right again. And he just keeps digging himself deeper and deeper.
I feel like that they can take Hangman pretty far with that.
Yeah.
But my vision, and again, I've been wrong on this stuff plenty of times before, but my vision is Darby Allin in his match against Moxley, about to get beaten down with the Death Riders. Hangman's music hits. He comes down, clears out Claudio, Yuta, Pac. And as Darby gets up for that last coffin drop that's going to finish Moxley, Hangman in the same position where Matt and Nick Jackson were in his match against Kenny looks up and gives Darby that nod before Darby drops him for the pin.
I think something similar could happen. I think mostly the idea is the idea of like you said, Hangman thinks that he winning the title will help, bring him back. I think the real way back is him realizing he can't be that guy. Yeah. And that he supports, whoever ultimately beats him and then starts working his way back from there.
Yeah, I don't think he turns face when he wins the world championship. I think he turns face when he helps somebody else win it.
Yeah.
So but I think we're at least 2 pay-per-view cycles away from anything like that happening. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so solid ending, crowd's hyped, and they're promoting the show in Asheville, North Carolina, which they had last night to help support hurricane relief in that area. So yeah, that was AEW Worlds End. All the matches I thought were at least solid technically. My only real issue was I think about the main event and the Cole MJF story, or the Cole MJF match. The story just is not where it needs to be.
There's work to be done, sure.
But I mean, as always with AEW, they've got so much potential going into this coming year, and like the people they have back who are healthy. Oh man,
Here's the thing: even with whatever I thought in the show would either need improvement or felt like a misfire, I'm not at the end of my patience. It's like I'm willing to be like, okay, so this could be improved upon. I'm willing to see what you guys do to fix it.
There is a tendency, I feel like, in a lot of wrestling discourse to just be like, well, this isn't working, end it.
So many people just want to throw their hands up and be like, enough.
And even when I look at, like I said, where the Death Riders, the story's not where I'd hoped it would be. It's recoverable. Like, just get a clear vision, just focus up, and honestly, like a good next adversary that they can build to. And like I mentioned at the top, I do think the Death Rider story is the kind that would work better in that era of AEW where they had more space between pay-per-views.
Sure.
Where they were building for somebody Moxley's going to fight at pay-per-view in 3 months. And in between that, you've got like 2 or 3 mini arcs of who he's feuding with and whatnot. So I think the fact that you've got to build in a month or so to who he's fighting in this main event has kind of forced things to compress a little bit in ways they weren't quite ready for.
I think even if they're now on a monthly pay-per-view cycle, they've got to work on remembering to keep building ahead.
Yeah,
I think a little bit they've fallen into the idea of building the short term too much.
Yeah. So overall, I struggled to rate this main event because I do think like the story was fine. I feel like I'm trying not to rate it in terms of where it could go, because it could be that this is the start of something that just really snaps everything back together. I gave it 2 3/4. I think it is. I
imagine you writing on a grade on a term paper C+. I know you can do better than this.
That's kind of where I'm at. Like it's a solid, like as a TV main event, this would have been perfect, fantastic. As what's supposed to be kind of the culmination of the Death Riders to this point, it feels a little adrift. But yeah, I'm an optimistic guy, and I will continue to watch AEW because I do have a sense that they can pull this together. And yeah, the build to Okada versus Kenny Omega is going to be amazing. All right, so overall, Chris, any other final thoughts on the pay-per-view?
Not really.
All right, I gave it 3.5 out of 5 blood-soaked Englishmen. Just AEW Worlds End. All
Solid
right.
show, yeah.
Yes, indeed. David, we promised you under 90 minutes, and we have managed to pull that off.
Yes, you have, and I'm very proud of you for that, making my life a lot easier. So let's go ahead and wrap up here. Robert, if people want to reach out to you online or follow you online, where is the best place for them to do that at?
Well, an echo of me is and always will be on the platform formerly known as Twitter, but I have recently started trying to establish myself a little more on Bluesky at RedbeardRob17 at Bluesky. I'm still actually not familiar enough there to know my handle at the top, and it's not loading right now, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Did we ever determine if it's Bluesky or Blue Sky? That's gonna drive me insane.
It is Blue Sky, and I can't believe you're having this discussion right now.
I don't
Okay,
think- I've only ever seen it written. I've never heard anyone else say it out
Oh my
loud.
God!
I was being sincere because I have not.
It is Blue Sky.
Okay,
It is
are
Blue
you
Sky.
are you also on Blue Sky, Chris?
It's all one word, but it's BLUESKY.
Right. I understand.
Anyway,
that.
I just decided I have a 5-minute thought I want to get out.
I will kick you to death.
You got to get through that window first.
Yeah, Chris, if people want to reach out to you online or follow you online, someplace that's not Twitter, have you made the jump yet?
I have, but I'm still on both, honestly.
Boo. What's your handle? You're
Well,
looking it up, aren't you?
Well, that would be telling. No, I'm looking for Rob's, actually.
Oh. Well, in the meantime, if you want to reach out to me online or follow me online, you can do that on Instagram at DBHensley. I have not yet made the transition over to Blue Sky. Maybe one of these days, but I have too much social media as it is.
I think I mentioned before. I'm not trying to overhype it, but it's basically just Twitter pre-Elon. It's not an exceptional place, but it's a better place.
Right. And in terms of this network, last year, me and Robert and our co-host Kara Hayes started another side podcast called Long Walk Talks Lost. We've already covered the first season, but coming up when we get into 2025, we're going to start tackling season 2.
We need something to occupy ourselves in the first few months of the year.
Uh-huh. Oh, wait a minute. Shit, it's already 2025. We should probably start watching Lost again soon.
Yeah, we talked about we were just going to find time to watch it even if we weren't recording.
Uh-huh. Well, then the holidays sort of got in the way of that.
Dave, will I ever get to Long Walk Talk again?
Oh, maybe at some point.
I'll kill you.
Hey, I remember at one point you were a little overwhelmed by being on 2 of these. I don't want. I was
So the better decision was to freeze me out of one for a year.
Yeah, and
God.
shuffle Robert into your place.
I'm gonna keep this going just so that hits 130 now.
Chris, I swear to you, my intention was only ever to replace dogs and possibly Shelby.
Yes, exactly. No. Long Walk Talks is not over. It just it shifted gears because Robert and Kara presented me with an intriguing idea.
Right, you've written me out. I got it. Yes.
Well, when did you get here? If you want to keep up with Long Walk Productions, you can visit us online at longwalk.us to see more of our original work or hear past episodes that are no longer streaming. You can follow the YouTube links in the show notes. Thank you very much for listening, and if you enjoy this show or any of the shows on the Long Walk Podcast Network, like Long Walk Talks Lost, please make sure to leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening on.
And as William Shakespeare said, all's end that world's end. This is a work.
Lost sucks.
He also said brevity is the soul of wit.